We must recognize the reality that this is a regime, a Kim regime north of the DMZ that threatens peace and stability. Our combined effort is to deter that sort of threat or to have military options, many different military options that would realistically reduce that threat as low as possible. And yes, we do have those options.
That was Secretary of Defense James Mattis yesterday in South Korea talking about the threat from the north and the American determination to reduce that threat. This coming before President Trump's own 12-day trip to Asia that begins next Friday. He'll visit South Korea on November 7th. Joining us for more on this is Gordon Chang, the author of Nuclear Showdown, North Korea Takes on the World. Gordon, thanks for joining us.
Thank you so much, Jillian.
So what Secretary Mattis laid out there for us is something we've heard from President Trump himself several times over the last few weeks to few months, which is basically that he's got a whole arsenal of military options ready to go in the event we need them. I think the broader strategic concern here is, are these the only options we have left? Has the president sort of run the gamut on diplomatic options, or is there still more we can do?
Oh, there's a lot more that we can do, and the president has been doing it. You know, the president since early spring has been running around the world cutting off money to North Korea. You know, we saw that with that early spring presidential directive. Then there was the June 29th designation of a small Chinese bank as a primary money laundering concern, cutting it off from the global banking system. And then a monumental step forward, which was that September 21 executive order, which told the world that if you do business with North Korea, you're not doing business with the U.S. These are actually starting to have an effect because there are reports, unconfirmed, but there are reports that lower-level officials in Pyongyang, the capital of North Korea, are not getting rations from the government. And that's an indication that Kim Jong-un, the ruler there, doesn't have the money to do what he would like, which is, of course, to build missiles and nukes and, of course, gift politics, which is to sort of give Mercedes and Rolexes to the favored regime elements. Kim Jong-un could be running out of money pretty soon.
So if the centerpiece of President Trump's diplomatic strategy has been really ramping up pressure on North Korea's neighbors, to include South Korea, Japan, China, I think he's been in weekly touch with their leadership in recent months. Do you feel like he's had success with that? I know he's really putting pedal to the metal here, but is it adding up to meaningful advances for the U.S.?
I think so. You know, take, for instance, the most difficult case of all, which is China. China, at the end of September, seems to have ordered its banks to cut their relationships with North Korea. You know, we're going to have to see over term whether they actually enforce that continually. But nonetheless, that's a step forward. And, you know, we have seen a lot of these African countries stop paying money to North Korea, and that's a direct result of American diplomacy. So, yeah, there has been progress. Now, the question is, we need to have progress pretty quickly because the North Koreans, within about 9 months or so, will be able to put a nuke on top of a long-range missile and hit the American homeland. And, of course, we do not want that capability. But on the other hand, I think the president is actually got the right strategy and is pretty determined to carry it out.
So when we look at the president's own upcoming Asia tour, I think a decision that he's going to have to make fairly soon is whether or not to visit the DMZ as part of this. It's clear that people who support that think that it would be a great show of American might in the region. There's people who say it's probably not worth the personal security risk to the president. Where do you shake out on this?
Well, sometime during President Trump's 4-year term, he should go to the DMZ to show resolve. It doesn't actually have to be this trip. We got to remember that, you know, the region understands the American position. We have now 3 carriers under command of 7th Fleet, and that's unprecedented. So we have military assets in the region which really show American determination. You know, I'd like President Trump to go to the DMZ this time, but if he doesn't, if he goes next year, that's fine too. And so, you know, they're going to make that decision based on a number of factors. But, you know, I don't think they have to worry about people in the region concerned about American resolve.
All right. And last question. I only have time for a yes or no answer, unfortunately. Do you think that South Korea needs to develop nuclear weapons of its own to hedge against the North?
No, definitely not.
All right. Great answer. Gordon, thanks so much for joining us. We look forward to talking to you again soon.
Thank you.